Good morning, my name is Ana Maria and I'm going to do my presentation about immigration and the US economy as well as its future prospects. Okay, so the phenomenon of immigration in the United States has been much discussed and polemic in recent years. During the presentation, I will address the immigration process that this country has undergone in the last decades, the main factors that have influenced it, and the impact it has had on the American economy and the future prospects. As the graphic shows, over the past 2 centuries, the number of immigrants in the United States has varied in great proportion. At the beginning of the 20th century, the number of foreign-born U.S. residents raised significantly because of the arrival of immigrants from Eastern and Southern Europe. This large number of immigrants were mainly Catholic Jews and English-speaking Europeans. They migrated to the United States under the promise of jobs and financial prosperity. They had to make the hard decision to leave behind family, friends, and ways of living, knowing how difficult it would be to make a living and send money home in that time. But in the 1920s, tight restrictions brought to an end the era of immigration. Nearly 2 decades later, the Immigration Act of 1924 was established as a quota system to limit the number of immigrants entering the U.S., particularly Asians. Preventing certain groups of people from entering the country caused illegal immigration to increase, also prompting the U.S. Border Patrol to act. So, nevertheless, a new wave of immigration began around 1970, with people coming from Asia and Latin America as well. Although the share of immigrants has been increasing ever since, it is still below the levels reached in the first wave of immigration. Now I'm gonna explain what is the term unauthorized immigration. So unauthorized migration is the international movement of people through irregular or extra-legal channels. At their destination, such people are often termed illegal or undocumented immigrants. States have the sovereign right to regulate entry into their territories, but the sheer volume and the tenacity of unauthorized migrants speak to the tenuousness of any state's ability to exert complete control over cross-border movements. Okay, so according to the source Statista, unauthorized migration reached its peak, as you can see, in 2007, showing its biggest increase among the years 1990 and 2007. Since then, unauthorized migration has been slowly decreasing, but not significantly. How has immigration affected U.S. economy? Firstly, immigration has expanded the workforce. Data shows how in 2014, foreign-born workers made up 16.7% of the U.S. labor force, which means that without these immigrants, the United States would have 16.7% fewer workers. As Paul Krugman says in the International Economic Theory and Policy book, there is evidence that foreign-born workers in the U.S. are concentrated in both the lowest and highest educational groups. Studies have shown that immigration can have a positive effects on a country's economic growth and productivity, innovation, education, and more. So in July 2019, there were approximately 44.9 million immigrants people in the US, making up 13.7% of the nation's population at that time, according to data from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey. One common misunderstanding is that immigrants take jobs away from native citizens of a country, but the studies suggest that while some jobs are taken, the most likely scenario is that jobs are created. In a 2020 study, Azoulay claims that immigrants are 80% more likely to become entrepreneurs and create jobs for people in the country. Most immigrants are of working age and they move to a new country to find or create jobs, thus having a positive impact on the labor force. An increasing number of immigrants have higher level degrees, to which can help also increase innovation. How Trump's rise to power affected immigration in the United States. Well, in 2016, as you all know, the United States faced a presidential race characterized by controversial statements made by Donald Trump. The issue of immigration was one of the major campaign's issues and played a decisive role in bringing Donald Trump to power. So Donald Trump was elected as the American president in an environment of controlling and curbing immigration flows, both legal and illegal. To support its beliefs, Trump mentions that he controls the admissions of a new law earning workers in order to help wages grow, get teenagers back to work, aid minority rise into the middle class, help schools and communities falling behind, and to ensure all immigrants members of the national family become part of the American dream. However, he seems to emphasize a merit-based immigration policy that would give priority to immigrants with higher skills, including languages skills, training, and education achievement. The control of illegal immigration from Mexico and the crackdown on 8 million undocumented aliens would further reduce the supply of mostly low-skilled workers and exert upward pressure on their wages. Sectors within the U.S. economy that are expected to be affected by tighter labor markets as a result of the new immigration policy would be construction, hospitality, and agriculture. It is no coincidence that these sectors employ the highest percentages of unauthorized workers. So finally, I'm gonna respond to this question. What would be the expected effect of such policy on the overall U.S. economy? Okay, so lower immigration flows will tend to reduce both aggregate supply, both in the short and medium run, and aggregate demand. So both of these shifts would tend to reduce real output with a likely medium to longer term impact. It must be pointed out, however, that the net effect both on an output, and hence unemployment rates, and prices, hence wages, is not clear, as it will depend on how the proportion of high to low skilled immigrants' labor will affect total value added in the economy. So only sustainable productivity increases will have beneficial effects on average wages and the standard of living. The mix of low-skilled to high-skilled immigration flows will also affect fiscal outcomes. A higher proportion of skilled immigrants will increase the ratio of tax revenues to spending for these groups, thereby predicting a net immigration fiscal surplus. Finally, to sum up, I would like to do a conclusion about everything that I said. So I would like to highlight some ideas that I found most interesting. So firstly, as the statistics says, the United States has more immigrants than any other country in the world. Today, more than 40 million people living in the US were born in another country, accounting for about 1/5 of the world's migrants. The population of immigrants is also very diverse, with just about every country in the world represented among US immigrants. So to move on, most immigrants are in the country legally. This percent is of 77, while almost a quarter are unauthorized, as I said, according to New Pew Research Center estimates based on census data adjusted for undercount. But in 2017, 45% were naturalized US citizens. So the decline in the unauthorized immigrant population is due largely to a fall in the number from Mexico, the single largest group of unauthorized immigrants in the US between 2007 and 2017. This group decreased by 2 million. Meanwhile, there was a rise in the number from Central America and Asia. So, as I said, Mexico is the top origin country of the US immigrant population. In 2018, roughly 11.2 million immigrants living in the US were from there, accounting for 25% of all US immigrants. The next larger origin groups were those from China with a 6%, India with a 6%, the Philippines with a 4%, and El Salvador with a 3%. So yes, these are some of the ideas that I found most interested, some data that, well, is good to keep in your mind. And yes, that's all. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you like the presentation.